government can play a very positive role in terms of developing the crypto ecosystem.
Thank you. Before we get into nitty-gritty things, can all of you who believe that the blockchain technology should become the mainstream and the government should provide the full support, how many people support that agenda? We have a tough job. Not many people would do.
Oh, wait a minute. How many of you heard what he said? The same number, you see? So if more people hear you, they will raise their hands.
Okay. On the 6th of June, as you are part of one of the groups, I'll be speaking at the European Parliament, speaking about the government and the adoption of the blockchain technology. Now, we know how important CBDC is, right? Just to inform, that's central bank digital currencies. We know central banks have been called as an unreliable boyfriend, such as Mark Carney, because of his U-turns coming back and forth. Where do you think, first of all, that acceptance of a digital currency by the central bank is going to happen the first? As I'll start with you, Alex, because Goldman Sachs has made the most amount of a noise in this space, in putting the desk out there.
Right, in terms of, so could you repeat the question, please?
So do you think that the central government's going to have a CBDC, like the central currency, very soon, or are we just going to see quite a few number of years before central banks would ever evolve to this?
I think probably the latter. I think if you take any blockchain pilot projects or anything in terms of adoption, I think it takes years. It takes corporate years, and corporates are much smaller.
Yeah.
So I think as far as governments are concerned and having a real impact at how we live, I think that's going to take a lot longer.
What about you?
Well, our representative on Barbados was actually the man that helped to implement this first currency. Barbados Central Bank actually issued a digital cryptocurrency. And we see that it's happening. Marshall Islands now has done it as well. It's a trend. It's, of course, big win for the first movers. And even the central banks in America and Europe understand that it's a way to go. They're trying to get on it. But honestly, we see that they can never get as good as private currencies. They can never beat Monero, and they cannot beat Monero in its, for example, privacy settings. So they will always play a second league in a cryptocurrencies, and it's inevitable. This technological revolution that we are seeing is something that will render national states and national institutions obsolete. And we are here, Liberlanders are here to help the countries to go through that process and speed it up, actually.
So, well, let's face it. I mean, governments, they love blockchain and they don't crypto. So that's very simple, and there is a very simple.
Did you say governments love cryptos?
They don't love crypto. I didn't want to use the word love because it doesn't go well with what I was going to say. But yeah, they love blockchain because blockchain could be a solution, but crypto is not the thing that they want even to discuss.
Yeah.
So having that in mind, it doesn't mean that solutions are not there, but I agree with Alex that it will take a long time. What we at such events can do together, how many of you have ICOs here about to be launched in the next 3 months? None?
Not many.
Okay, very few. All right, so where we can start is, let's give some basic data. Europe was responsible for 32% of the global GDP production just 12 years ago.
Okay, no, but the question back is that if central banks are not going to adopt a currency, a digital currency, right, the adoption of the entire protocol of the blockchain is going to be in a jeopardy.
Well, there are no representative of any
governments, yes?
So let's not speak about that because I don't think that we can speak on their behalf. What I'm saying is we have to have the right rhetorics So when we talk, like you and me will be again in the parliament speaking, when we talk about this, we have to say the right words in the right time. The right words are where I started. 12 years ago, Europe was responsible for 32% of the global GDP production. 12 years later, Europe is responsible for less than 21% of the global GDP production. This means 1/3 of the power of Europe has vanished only for 12 years. With that speed, we are getting into a third world continent in a speed of light. It's nothing, it's 12 years. So the question is crypto and blockchain a driver for the future of Europe? If yes, here in this room, I can say we have a future. And then we start elaborating with the policymakers how this could happen in a way that it's feasible, not in 100 years, not in 20 years, because 20 years will be too late. And obviously, blockchain protocol will evolve, hopefully, into a more secure state. But actually starting now and leading that process. That's why I joined the EU Observatory Forum, and that's why I'm there. So, is it going to happen now? No. No, because if you ask any financial minister around Europe what they think about crypto from the European Union, I mean, you will hear one and the same answer, if you hear an answer at all.
Actually, that's wrong, because I sat myself with the finance minister of Lithuania, and he's welcoming the idea of a blockchain, and he's saying that we are putting red carpets, and I put it on the story on the Forbes, that we're rolling out the red carpets for the companies to come and make disruption here.
The question is that one of scale, right? So I think how many people live in Europe?
Yeah.
How many people live in Lithuania? So it's great that someone is starting that, but can you see it happening in the UK in the next 3 years?
Absolutely, because that's why we just continuously be playing this game of revolving door and an unreliable boyfriend, because Marcani said back in February that, okay, cryptocurrencies are still pretty much a part of a scam, and now he says that, look, I think the CBDC could become a reality because we are working towards various different technologies. But let's move on to the next subject, which is where your project Oxygen is coming, right? Because you are taking very important step in relation to some sort of a fixed income product, but not a fixed income product. But you need a regulator behind it. You need a jurisdiction behind it. Hence, you've chosen Gibraltar. And I applaud the work that Gibraltar is doing, despite the fact that Lithuania is on the verge of doing an STO, so your security tokens. So why did you go to Gibraltar, or how you think that is going to help you as opposed to other jurisdictions?
Look, we had a regulatory consultant which helped us choose which country to go to, and it's a consultant who advised different governments around the world, including Japan, Luxembourg, some guys in the States. And I think so the reason why I picked Gibraltar is for 3 reasons. So one is principles-based approach. So rather than prescribed rules, they look at things as with understanding that no one blockchain-based business is the same. So that's one. Second, it's the speed, right? So I think if you look at someone like Bitstamp, I think they were getting some kind of licensing for up to 2 years. Yep. Gibraltar commits to getting things done in 3 months. Now, we're towards the end of the process, as 2.5 months in, having had a kind of 4-hour meeting with the regulator last week. So we'll see what happens in the next 2. Now, met with the Minister of Finance there, who is very committed to keeping to the timeline. That's very important. And 3 is how much thought has gone into regulation, and to what extent the government has worked when thinking of different laws, to what extent it's worked with the banking system. I think what's happened before with the Isle of Man is where they welcomed, they created kind of great laws, very favorable laws towards crypto-related businesses, and then the banking, kind of one of the main banks, switched off their accounts for 20-odd companies in one day, right? So the key thing is what they've done, what the Gibraltar guys have done, is have kept the banks on board from the very earlier on and built out procedures in terms of how to look and manage risk of financial crime, which of course a lot of institutional people are, well, actually all of us, I'm not comfortable with. And so to me, this is the reason for Gibraltar. Now, as far as the regulation overall, I think what the regulation does do, it helps set a certain standard to give clients comfort and some kind of recourse to someone else. So you're responsible not just for someone to go to if things go wrong. 3, it's implementation of best practices of the financial world, because the DLT is a financial regulation. So things like kind of security of client assets. So what's happening to your assets when you deposit them on the exchange? Are they being used? What happens? What happens then? So kind of it increases overall resilience, I would say, of the business. It makes you think about a lot more things than you necessarily would have.
I would actually connect this question with the one that was previously there. Okay, there are some regulations which are healthy, and there is a good reason, but why Europe is lagging behind. And the European Commission itself estimates that the 200,000 pages of regulations that were produced in EU are actually slowing economic progress by 3.5% a year. That's actually exactly the number that you mentioned, that 1/3 of the output has been thrown out of the window. It's actually like the regulations that are implemented in Europe are killing half of the continent every 20 years. It's virtually the same thing to implement this package of regulations, which are usually done for big business, and to, of course, benefit somebody.
So should they, as a government regulator, should they just give you a free hand? If they give a free hand, we know what the SEC has already said. They said that, look, if you wanted to see any unregulated market, go and see the ICO market. I completely concur what you are saying. Regulations would kill them. And then, yes, it is easy to blame the EU that too many regulations. But we know the financial crisis, what happened during the financial crisis.
Right.
Gents, would it be okay that the word governance, self-governance, only emerged when Congress took a step back and let SEC and CFTC completely free hands, because they haven't said anything that, okay, how they should be. They just keep saying it that, okay, there should be self-governance, and then different advisories, different consortiums, and everything else have started to come up. Do you not think like the day that SEC and CFTC put their foot down and then the Congress comes hard on them, the self-governance would be out of the door?
I really believe the best thing that they can do is just get out of the business, and the politicians can do the same. You know, they're always asking how we can help economy, who should we sponsor, who should get more subsidies, but really the best way how you can help economy is stop dealing with it. And we really need this new generation of thinking, just like we have separated the church and a state. We need to separate the economy and the state, and that's the future if we want to prosper.
Thank you.
All right, now, do you have stones? I will say something that maybe you will stone me. Guys, there are other people out there, humans, that are not entrepreneurial, that are not this, that are not that. And these people need rules. They need to survive. This is part of us. We are people, and we should support each other. And it's not just the wild, wild west, which we know it was. There were no rules, no regulations. You remember how people shot each other? Do we want to live in this society? I don't. I want my kids to live in a better life. Not worse, better. And better comes with rules. Only the rules can set us free. If we all follow the same rules, which are not rules for everything, but basic rules that guarantee our safety, our freedom, everything else is a rotten regulation, and it should not be there.
Never-ending debate, right? Because regulations, less regulations, or shouldn't be regulations.
There is a great example, right? You've got these qualified investors in the United States, and it's a crazy regulation. You have to be a millionaire. You have to have all other sort of preconditions, And they are, what the regulator is doing, and it's one of those really enforced laws, is they're preventing poor people to get richer because they don't allow them to invest. And it's like a typical US regulation where they're making poor poorer and rich richer, and it doesn't really even have any meaningful sense to it, right? They're just preventing people from making money. But yet they say, we are protecting you from the evil hands of the market. Luckily, we've got all these technologies, and even the Americans can set up the VPN, and they can buy any token they want.
I cannot agree more than this. Well, at the same time, everybody can go Vegas and lose all their money, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I agree. Of course, that kind of examples are absolutely true. So we have to just to find. But again, I'm trying to speak here on behalf of our ecosystems and to find the best way to talk. Because at the end of the day, we cannot change everything from now till tomorrow. It's called revolution, and many people will die. But let's go for evolution and build a better world for all of us, step by step, but not in 100 years' time, but maybe in 5 to 10.
But this step-by-step is the issue. That's why people are choosing Gibraltar. That's why people are choosing other countries. Because which country is taking bigger step, or which country is getting closer to, that's creating their entire issue.
That's the best of freedom. Once we see Gibraltar exhaling, or Liechtenstein, which I'm meeting in 1 week time, the government, and Luxembourg, once the other countries see them excel, and not breaking any rule,
yeah.
And then we have a great example.
And you can scale it.
And do it. And then you scale it up. You always need these small laps where you see the future and then make this future. And then that's what we need to use.
Basically, you're putting the gun on someone else's shoulder. That's why you're doing it. And then just let it happen.
I think you're doing it.
I wanted to give the opportunity to audience for the last 4 minutes. So if anyone has any questions.
No way. By the way, while the mic is going there, I just wanted to tell you all, guys, today I have a birthday, and I woke up with the thing, I wake up like for the past 30 years, with a thing that it's about two things, generosity and happiness. And because I don't complain, I'm happy, let's be generous. Whoever meets me after this and gives me his business card or her business card will get a present from me.
Great advertisement.
€1 worth of ticket.
Please, sir.
Yeah, we're talking about regulations. Before you were talking about ICO, of the scams, etc. I remember that there is, for example, a project that the name is CoinCrowd that aims in the token sort of protection for the token holders, that they can vote how and when to release the money to the development team. So this is a way to self-regulation of this world. And it was Vitalik itself to talk about this decentralized ICOs. And so we don't need your regulations. We don't need your protection because we are self-aware and able to protect ourselves. In the development team of the Bitcoin Private, where I am, we are going to create a privacy coin where the privacy coins are to be censorship resistant. So we don't need regulation because the censorship resistance is against any kind of regulation. It cannot be regulated by any government. And the future, what is the future? Is the decentralized application. So we will have Facebook without Zuckerberg, and Amazon without Amazon. We will have Uber without Uber, you understand? So what's the point? The point is that this is not a declaration of war. This is a declaration of independence. Independence from the rule, independence for the establishment, because the war is already won. This will happen this year. Not next, not in 5, not in 10 years.
If I may, what's your question? We agree with the regulation.
It's advertising.
What's the question, please? Because we got 2 minutes.
The question is, what this debate is for the regulation if regulation are not necessary in this world. Regulation are just stopping the evolution.
Okay, Alex.
It's not about regulation. It's rethinking of what do we understand about regulation. Is it a paper written, or this is just a piece of code?
Very well said.
Yeah, right. And in this way, we don't need regulation itself because code regulate our relations. And you correctly. And when you think about, for example, SEC, Security and Exchange Commission, they were created 90 years ago. And what do? They maintain the registry, central registry, who issued what. Why do we need that registry, centralized registry? Because the blockchain is a registry itself. Why do we need duplicate these records, who issued what?
I love the enthusiasm. One more question before we finish, sir. One more question from the audience.
Just let me say that Uber without Uber, Facebook without Zuckerberg, etc., reminds me of what the Lion King said: "Planet Earth without humans." You know, it goes well, but it's about governance, not regulation. That's what we are talking about. So
Briefly, please.
Thank you, guys. I really like the discussion, how it goes. Absolutely enchanté of Liberland. But still, I want to ask you, we are still speaking the old-fashioned world. So why a lot of people from the community cannot understand your word? Because we're still speaking about the regulation. So if we're gonna name it another word, so if we're gonna name it some kind of new word that would be understood for everybody in the community, I think it's gonna be better. And the question is, are you still believe in governments? Are you still believe, you have talked a lot of that we have to educate these people who are putting the laws. They do not protect us. They cheated us a lot of time. We have a unique chance today to be more happier, to have new future for all humankind with no guys sitting on wherever. So do we still need the politicians in blockchain?
Okay, very briefly, sir, very briefly.
Of course, we are heading to the governmentless future, and we can already see that all these different elements which are going to be the size of nations are being built. Those are the decentralized autonomous organizations or decentralized autonomous governance models that we see, and we see that Dash is getting to a size of nation slowly but surely, and that we will see much more of these institutions happening. And on the other hand, we will see the fall of traditional nation states one by one. But I just wanted to say one more thing about the regulations. Like, people are obsessed with regulation and so on. But for example, Czech Republic also doesn't have any regulations about ICOs. The same way, like Liberland doesn't have any regulation about ICOs. And nobody cares. You know, nobody sees Czech Republic, and even the Czech Central Bank, because they've got a reasonable governor there, said, we are not going to make any regulations about crypto in the near future. So anybody can issue whatever they want.
Thank you.
You know, it's just, you know, really, those things are the state is a state of mind, and I think we are too much tied to the belief system that we were born to.
Thank you. I think, as we all kind of agreed, it's the education, working with the regulators, working within the frameworks of sandboxes, proving through the right projects that, look, regulators, blockchain has a bad name because of KYC and all others, but it has the ability to change the world. It will change the world. It will not look like the same as it is today, because the way that we are looking at, from your manufacturing to your supply, those are the real cases of the blockchain technology. I want you guys to put our hands together for our beautiful panel who have contributed today. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.